Hello, and this is Political Scott here, and I'm coming to you with a video from the debates, a video breaking down the lies of a particular candidate during the debate. I'm saying we cannot vote for a candidate that tells all these lies, and I have not compiled it actually, someone else has, and I'm going to show you a compilation of the lies, a good amount with video evidence showing the lies this one candidate told during the election. So, sorry, if you argue with people or in your conversation with people who don't agree with your position, you can send them this video. Send them this video, and it will settle a lot of things. They won't have much to say back to you at all. It reduces all of that. So if you're a Democrat here, copy the link to this video and send it to as many of your friends as you can. Post it where you can. Just take a pause, copy the link, and send it out right now before you continue. And so I proceed. Here we go.
I compiled a list of all of Kamala Harris's lies told during the debate with Trump. Let's get into it. Lie number 1. Tax cuts to billionaires. So this is a lie that the left likes to push, but in actuality, Trump's tax cuts benefited everyone, but most notably, the middle class. People with an AGI of $15,000 to $50,000 enjoyed a tax cut between 16% and 26% in the first year alone. And the average tax cut for brackets starting at $1 million was less than 6%. Lie number 2. Trump has not proposed a 20% sales tax. Harris was likely referring to Trump's proposal to raise tariffs on imports. Lie number 3. Kamala claims that Trump left them the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Now, I've already debunked this claim on my channel before, but I'll do it briefly here. During the COVID lockdowns, the unemployment rate rose to 14.8%, but by the time Trump left office, he slashed that by over half to 6.4%. Lie number 4. She claims that January 6th was the worst attack on democracy since the Civil War. I'm not even going to comment. Lie number 5. She attempts to tie Trump to Project 2025 over and over and over again, despite the fact that he's denounced it over and over and over again. Lie number 6. So the moderator claims that there is no state where it's legal to kill a baby after it's born. Well, there are currently 7 states that have no limit on abortions. Also, former Governor of Virginia Ralph Northam did state that he was not against a post-birth abortion given birth defects or non-viability.
Would permit an abortion even as a woman is essentially dilating, ready to give birth. And she answered that it would permit an abortion at that stage of labor.
And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired.
Lie number 7. Kamala claims that there is a Trump abortion ban that makes no exception for rape or incest. This is absolutely false on 2 levels. 1, there is no Trump abortion ban, and 2, he believes in 3 exceptions: rape, incest, and life of the mother.
But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important.
After Roe v. Wade was overturned, it was kicked back to the states. This is now a state issue.
I think I have to weigh in here and say that it is really anti-democratic for this not to be sent back to the states. Or I would say it is very much in the interest of democracy. It is democratic for it to be sent back to the state, because when you have a central government in a certain location determining how the people in each state live, how they choose to make their laws concerning this issue, that is what tends towards fascism. Because today you may be happy that the federal government says, if it says so, there should be no ban on abortion. Well, what if tomorrow the federal government changes and says there should be a complete ban everywhere? Would you like it? So think about a situation where the people in California say they want abortions to carry on. Should the desires or the inclinations of people in California be inflicted on those in Alabama? Or the people in Alabama who say they don't like abortion, should their will or their wish be inflicted on those in California? So, can't you see how this is actual democracy in action, making it go back to the states so that in each one state they have the conversation and the dialogue and they make their laws as they see fit? Additionally, what's the path? The path from taking the issue to the states to decide for themselves. What's the path from there to a federal ban on abortions? It doesn't make any sense. It's a lie that the left feels you're stupid enough to believe, and start being an activist over. And I'm embarrassed that it actually worked on intelligent Americans. I think they think you're stupid enough. That's the only explanation I see here. You're stupid enough to believe this upside down narrative they sell to you. And this is the reason why everyone should do their own research. It's in the hands of the states, and in your state, you weigh in on the conversation, and the laws will be made according as the people of the state decide.
That cannot be stressed enough. Lie number 8. She claims Trump doesn't support IVF. Again, this is absolutely false and completely baseless.
I have to weigh in here again. How would you say someone who is pro-life is against IVF? It doesn't make sense, and you're going to see it here yourself.
Supporter of IVF, going as far to say that if he gets back in office, he's going to make sure that either the government pays for it or he mandates that the insurance pays for it, so that way the person receiving the treatment pays nothing.
IVF would be free.
So we are paying for that treatment.
All Americans who want it?
For all Americans that get it, all Americans that need it. So we're going to be paying for that treatment, or we're going to be mandating that the insurance company pay.
Lie number 9. She claims that Donald Trump killed the border bill, which really wasn't much of a competent border bill to begin with. It was more of a foreign aid/immigration reform bill with a little bit of border security sprinkled in there for good measure. But again, this is absolutely false with zero evidence to support this. Donald Trump was not even in office when this happened, and he has no power to influence such things.
Again, I have to weigh in here. I thought I wouldn't come into weighing again, but I have to, because you see, the way the Senate has been making bills or writing bills over the past maybe 10, 20 years, I'm not so sure, but I noticed over the last 8 years at least, or I would say 10 years, in fact, let's say 16 years, and this has been happening on both sides. When there's a bill put forward, let's say it is called in this case, the border bill, they add other things that have nothing to do with the border. They add their other agendas into that bill, so that when the bill is rejected because of the other interests added into the bill, they can say, and they can blackmail the opposers of the bill and say, hey, you don't want veterans to have a better life, for example. You don't want people to spend less on health care. Meanwhile, they added all sorts of garbage, atrocious garbage. Now, one of the things that was in that border bill was $40 billion, I believe it was, that should go to Ukraine in the southern border bill. How do you secure your southern border by sending $40 billion away to Ukraine? Isn't that fraudulent? And I understand that 1,500 people in that bill, 1,500 people were to be allowed every day before the border is closed. So in other words, unless 1,500 people have gone through, you don't close the border. That's the threshold. I mean, how many illegal aliens are supposed to be allowed to get into the country? Not even one. The number is 0. So it's really atrocious for these people to be talking about this when they know what they had in that bill. It was bad. And this is the reason why someone has proposed that every bill going forward should be single issue bills, period. If the bill cannot pass on its own merit, it cannot pass. You cannot be adding other things into it. You can't be adding $40 billion for Ukraine and other things that are not associated with the bill to a bill. I think it's going to help a lot going forward. I will try not to weigh in going forward on this video.
Lie number 10. The moderators claim that Trump's remarks about Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, killing and eating pets is false. Yes and no. So here's the truth. It has not been 100% confirmed that pets are being stolen and eaten in Springfield, aside from some unverified Facebook posts. There have been, however, multiple people going to city commission meetings in Springfield complaining about the Haitians, quote, chopping off the heads of ducks and eating them, on top of the many other offenses ranging from sexual assault to vehicular manslaughter.
Really challenge you guys to get out here and do something. These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They flipping cars in the middle of the street. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them like.
Putting containers in our grocery stores, helping themselves to what's inside and throwing the rest onto the shelves and floors. Pulling off of the highway to publicly clean and gut the roadkill lying there in front of anyone that passes by. Stealing animals from farmers and leaving their severed heads at the side of an old school where children play. Relieving themselves in public, making some barbaric stew out of the birds that live in our park. This is insanity, and it has to stop. What will become of Springfield? Where will we be in 5 years? The thought terrifies me.
Lie number 11. Gotta look at my notes for this. Harris claims that he's been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, 34 felonies, and liable for sexual assault. So, here's the truth with this. I've covered some of this, but honestly, I'm going to have to go a lot more in-depth and make dedicated videos to these subjects because it's a huge can of worms. So, for right now, she just gets a big fat Pinocchio. Lie number 12. Harris claims that Donald Trump was not renting to black people in the 70s. So again, I've already covered and debunked this. Go look for the video called Epic Debunking. Needless to say, there is no actual proof that he nor his father ever discriminated. Lie number 13. Harris claims that Trump has disdain for the military. Now, there have been multiple reports of anecdotal hearsay regarding Trump making uncouth remarks about the military, but nothing ever concrete and proven. The only disrespectful remarks that Donald Trump has ever made about a military service member were about John McCain years ago, and that was wrong. Aside from that, Donald Trump has been extremely pro-military and has always treated them with the utmost care and respect, making them one of his top priorities during his administration. Lie number 14. Harris claims that she's made it clear she would not ban fracking. Again, no, she did not. She said in the 2020 VP debate that Biden would not ban fracking.
That Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact.
She, on the other hand, has always been for banning fracking.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities.
Lie number 15. She says that she is not taking anyone's guns, yet she has always supported a mandatory buyback program. Now all of a sudden she doesn't support a mandatory buyback program, so you be the judge.
And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
We need an assault weapons ban.
We need an assault weapons ban.
We need an assault weapons ban.
I do believe that we need to do buyback. I'm prepared to take executive action and put in place a ban on the importation of assault weapons into our country.
Well, there are approximately 5 million, to your point, Craig. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program.
I support buybacks.
How mandatory is your gun buyback program?
It's mandatory.
And together, when we win in November, we are an assault weapons ban.
Lie number 16. The moderators try and paint the events of January 6th as though Donald Trump only told his supporters to march down to the Capitol and nothing else, and then after shit hit the fan hours later, jumped on Twitter and told them to be peaceful and go home. And this is not entirely accurate. What Trump actually said to that crowd before the events ensued was that, "I know you will soon be marching over to the Capitol to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard."
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
And then he followed up hours later on Twitter telling his supporters to go home and that we are the party of law and order.
But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time.
And also, Donald Trump was right when he said Nancy Pelosi admitted fault for not accepting Donald Trump's offer to send in the National Guard.
Responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. Should we call the Capitol Police? The National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
That is not a question of how they had been. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
Lie number 17, Harris says that Donald Trump incited a violent mob. Again, just covered it. Not true. Lie number 18, Harris claims that officers died in the line of duty on January 6th. This is false. Lie number 19, Harris alludes that Trump was charged with an insurrection. Again, this is simply not true. Lie number 20, Harris perpetuates the Charlottesville hoax, even though it's been debunked time and time again, including by yours truly. In actuality, he denounced it an hour and 49 minutes after the events, and then 2 times after. Here's what he really said.
And you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
Lie number 21, she claims that Donald Trump told the Proud Boys to, quote, stand back and stand by. So this is partially true, but there is a little bit more nuance to it than meets the eye. Donald Trump was asked by Chris Wallace during a debate in 2020 with Biden if he would denounce white supremacy and militia groups and tell them to stand down. Trump misspoke and said stand back and stand by, leading to confusion and people to think that he is affiliated with the Proud Boys, of which he is not.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared
to do
specifically
that,
do it? Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. Do you want to call them? What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would
white
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by.
Even though they are not a white supremacy group to begin with, their leader, Enrique Terrio, is actually of Afro-Cuban descent. Lie number 22, the non-biased moderators claim that Donald Trump's remarks about winning the 2020 election are completely false, and that also more than 60 cases were seen by many judges and all dismissed. The truth is that no judges actually looked at these cases, and there's actually quite a lot of substantial and tangible proof to show that there was voter fraud and tampering of evidence. Again, this is a huge can of worms, and I plan to make a dedicated video to this topic alone at some point, so stay tuned. Lie number 23, Harris peddles the bloodbath hoax. Trump never said if he didn't win there would be a bloodbath. What he said was there would be an economic bloodbath in the auto industry.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
Lie number 24, Harris claims that Donald Trump would be a dictator on day one. Again, this is just absolutely false. It stems from a town hall that he did with Hannity a few months back when he claimed that he would be a dictator on day one because he would shut down the border and drill baby drill. This was said jokingly, and it was very obvious in jest to anybody with a room temperature IQ.
Says, you're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, other than day one. We're closing the border, and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator, okay?
That sounds to me like you're going back to the policies when you were...
This is just a political ploy. Trump is a dictator. He wants to be a dictator. You're not going to be a dictator, are you? Tell me. I said, I'm going to be a dictator for one day. We're going to do 2 things. The border, we're going to make it so tight you can't get in unless you come in legally. And the other is energy. We're going to drill, baby, drill. After that, I'm not going to be a dictator. So I said, I'm going to be a dictator for one day. They cut it. They go, I'm going to be a dictator. But they cut the rest of the sentence. No, I am not going to be a dictator. I'm going to manage like we did.
25, Harris claims that Trump told Putin, quote, you can do whatever you want and you can go into Ukraine, end quote. This is simply not true. There is no evidence to support this wild-ass cockamamie claim, none whatsoever. Lie number 26, Harris claims that Trump and Kim Jong-un exchanged, quote, love letters. This one is just kind of elementary and a little silly. So the actual truth with this is, yes, Donald Trump made a joke about this years back in 2018 during a rally, claiming that him and Kim Jong-un used to be at each other's throats, and then they started exchanging letters, and then they fell in love.
I was really being tough, and so was he. And we would go back and forth, and then we fell in love, okay? No, really. He wrote me beautiful letters, and they're great letters. We fell in love. But you know what? Now they'll say, Donald Trump said they fell in love. How horrible. How horrible is that? So unpresidential.
It was a joke. It was said in jest, but Harris was trying to insinuate that it's because both of them are dictators and they bonded over being dictators. Again, that's simply not true. In fact, there was a point in time where it was getting very tense between the United States and North Korea, but then Trump broke peace and became the very first U.S. president to ever set foot on North Korean soil, which I think is a good thing. I don't know about you guys, but I tend to lean towards peace. Lie number 27, Harris claims that Putin and other dictators are rooting for Donald Trump to get back in office, but the funniest thing is that Putin actually came out and recently endorsed Harris. Lie number 28, Harris claims that there are no active duty troops in any combat zone anywhere around the world for the first time in a century. This is false. I'm going to be looking at my notes here. There are currently active duty U.S. troops deployed to Iraq and Syria who have been under frequent attack by Iran-backed militia forces over the past year. There are also thousands of active duty U.S. sailors deployed to the Middle East who are facing drone strikes. And just earlier this year, 3 U.S. soldiers were killed on the border of Syria by Iran-backed forces. Lie number 29, she claims that Donald Trump called for the death of the Central Park Five. So again, I've already debunked this. Go look for my video called Epic Debunking that I mentioned earlier. I go much more in depth there, but again, I will just briefly say there is absolutely no proof that Donald Trump called for their execution. Did Donald Trump think they were guilty? Yes. Does he still think that they're guilty even though they were legally exonerated? Yes. Does that mean that he actively called for their execution? No, it does not. Read the article in its entirety. Don't listen to other people tell you what it says. Read what it says. Lie number 30. She claims that her and Joe Biden capped the cost of insulin at $35. Again, I've already debunked this and covered it before, but I'll cover it briefly once more. Donald Trump was the one to cap the cost of insulin at $35.
It's just $35 a month per type of insulin, and some plans may offer it free. So for everybody who's getting ripped off and paying tremendous prices, senior citizens, is a tremendous saving.
It is President Biden and I that took on Big Pharma and finally capped the cost of insulin for our seniors at $35 a month. But Donald Trump and his running mate intend to get rid of our $35 cap on insulin.
Lie number 31. Harris claims that she is fine with private insurance, but her comments in the past would suggest that that is a flat-out lie.
Follow up on that, and correct me if I'm wrong. To reiterate, you support the Medicare for All bill, I think initially co-sponsored by Senator Bernie Sanders. You're also a co-sponsor on it. I believe it will totally eliminate private insurance. So for people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it?
Well, listen, the idea is that everyone gets access to medical care. Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on.
And finally, at lie number 32, she claims that her and Joe Biden created 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. This is simply not true. The BLS shows that 592,000 of those manufacturing jobs were recovered from COVID. Donald Trump alone created 414,000 of those manufacturing jobs, and the Biden-Harris administration only created 173,000 new manufacturing jobs. When you factor in all of her bullshit lies, Kamala Harris had absolutely nothing to go on in her debate performance aside from trying to mislead the gullible public who doesn't follow this stuff as closely as a small subsection of us do. Take everything that this woman says with a grain of salt.
So there you have it. There you have it. So in the end, the person with the most lies, at least from what we have seen, the person with the most lies in that debate was this woman. Yes, it was this woman. So that's it. I'll come to you with another video. There's too much happening in the political space now, a lot to talk about, and I'll be doing a video, maybe a video a day, just weighing in on stuff I see happening. And I hope it is entertaining to you as it is to me. Thank you.